everyone. Welcome to this second part of the first day of BIOMEET. I hope you enjoyed the lunch break and that you had the opportunity to visit our exhibition area and drink some coffee and network with other participants. Our next session is called Fundings and Exits in Biotech, powered by Abionova. Please welcome the moderator of this session, David Braga Malta, life sciences investor and entrepreneur, and also our three guests, Ana Barreto Albuquerque, Chief Financial Officer and a member of the Board of Directors at BIOMEET, a Recifarm company, Maria Santos Vicente, Coordinator of Abionova, an incubator and accelerator of biosanitary and biotech companies in Salamanca, Spain, and Nuno Prego Ramos, founder and CEO of Valvian and former CEO of Cellmabs. Thank you all.
Perfect. Is it working? Yeah, perfect. Great. Thank you so much for staying with us for the afternoon. It's really a pleasure to be here to moderate this session. We'll invest the beginning of our session for you guys to tell us what we should know about you, which is not written in the Google, that we would all need to say who you are not. And then I would start after with one question that, of course, I didn't put in the briefing, which is, for me, a healthy ecosystem is an ecosystem that creates wealth and rich people. If people, entrepreneurs, don't become rich, then we are not doing anything here. And that's because the value that is created needs to be captured and shared. And so thinking on this, and our topic is funding and exits, let's look at the Portuguese ecosystem and know where we are, compare it a little bit with the Spanish one, and know what's the gap here. How many wealthy biotech entrepreneurs do we have? How many do we need to have a properly functioning ecosystem? But let's start. I'll start immediately on my right with quick bios on what should we know about you that we don't know already about what we read.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much to PBU for the invitation to be here. So my name is Ana Barreto Albuquerque. I'm the CFO of BIOMEET. Previously, I was a member of the executive board of the Water and Waste Services Regulation Authority. So I came from outside the sector. There I was responsible for the areas of economic regulation and corporate services. Before, I was executive director at Nova Finance Center, a knowledge center of Nova SBE. And I have also worked in banking, management consulting, industry, so several in different sectors. BIOMEET, I think I can do a brief interview of BIOMEET. BIOMEET is a CDMO company specialized in the manufacture of biological, clinical, trial material, and novel modalities such as viral vectors, RNA, and microbiome. And since the beginning of 2023, BIOMEET is also manufacturing a product already in commercial stage. BIOMEET was founded as a spin-off of IBET in 2007. And in the beginning of 2022 was acquired by Recifarm, a large CDMO group. And the acquisition was part of Recifarm's strategy to grow in the biologics market. And briefly, I think it's this.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Maria?
First of all, thanks to PBU for inviting me as part of the Spanish ecosystem in innovation. I work as a coordinator of Abionova. Abionova is a bio-incubator and bio-accelerator of startups focused on biotechnology and health companies. It's promoted by the Salamanca City Council, funded by the Junta de Castilla y León through the Institute of Competitiveness. We are just start working with the companies, and our difference with other space and other scientific park in the area is the provision of services, focusing specialized training in financial regulatory system. Well, we are in the step of sorry, in receiving startups. By myself, now I'm coordinating the project, and years before I was working for a biotech company, Cytognos, which was specialized in biotechnology, diagnostic, and flow cytometry. And after that, well, I have also a past like a research in plant
Hi. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the invitation. It's great to be here. Thank you. It's an honor to join you and to address today here at BIOMEET, all of you. And it's good that we are together. It's great to see all of these different people that we only see usually this time of the year. Quickly on myself, I've worked my entire life in the pharma industry and life sciences. I initially started out as, with 19-year-old, as a 19-year-old as a medical sales rep. So I did all of my career moving up in big pharma. I was trained initially as a lawyer, so I have a background in law. But after, I would say, 10 years, I understood that the industry was shifting, so I decided to put my career on hold and decided to pursue a career in biochemistry and biotechnology, and that's where in my master's and then my PhD that I met Paulo Videira, my co-founder, my colleague, my friend, and together we founded CellMabs in 2019 as a spin-off of Nova University. We were lucky enough to have made an exit in 2023. We were sold to Biotech after 3.5 years of tough research, but very successful, with very successful outcomes. And we're now already, funding and starting the new Valvian, and more than happy to talk to you about that in detail. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you so much, guys. It's really a privilege because I was trying to do math as you guys were speaking, and I think we can count the numbers of exits with one hand still, and we might not need the full hands to get there. And we have 2 of them in the stage here today, so it's quite interesting. And it's quite interesting because the phenotypes, to use biological language, of the companies are quite different in terms of what they do and where they position itself and in the value chain. And so I think we should carry on investing a little bit to understand what makes these cases unique still, and what is missing more globally, so that the uniqueness of these cases becomes the norm and we get bored about these types of events happening on a day-to-day basis. And going back to my first question, making people rich, is this what it's all about? Is this what happens? So you guys are here just because you don't have anything else to do now with your lives, and you are philanthropically dedicating time to the ecosystem, or how does one go from A to Z in these cases? And I'll just carry on speaking so that one of you decides who wants to start.
So, I think it's interesting because in a way I think as soon as you're able to be successful in one, then I think there are different takeaways that you can eventually take to another company. So there are different, I'd say, lessons learned that we can replicate in new companies. And I do believe that serial entrepreneurs, they exist because they found something that works, that is successful, that you can eventually replicate, even in different industries. But of course, there's also this different, I think, mindset that you get while you're an entrepreneur and when you're able to overcome these different challenges. And when the deal is also very good, what happens is that you put things into perspective. And I think that if you think about biotech entrepreneurs, usually, you're not selling T-shirts or advertising, right? You're usually working for a purpose. Of course, you need to deliver financial gains to shareholders. You need to, you know, to bring revenues and. But you know, at the end of the day, you're also thinking about patients, and I think that when there's a point where you're okay financially, then the purpose becomes bigger, and then there's the risk of you being bored. And I think that I can speak for myself. Now I'm in a mission of trying to give back to the ecosystem. Not that I'm extremely grateful for what it has given me. I think it's because I actually wouldn't like people to go through what I've been through, and you know what I'm talking about. I think that if we are able to come together as different teams, joined with a different purpose, if now we were able to also get some different, I mean, these different success stories, if we're now able to get this different attention to Portugal, why not leverage it? Why not make sure that we're not the only ones having this success, because it also helps us. So this is pretty, you know, no, Nuno is such an amazing guy. No, this is actually very selfish. I mean, you help me if you're also okay here. So I don't need to go to Boston and say, you know, I need 10 million. And they're like, why can't you raise 10 million in Portugal? Have you blown up your reputation there that you need to come here to raise capital? Or as an investor, a French investor that you know very well, once asked me, company X from Boston really wanted to invest in you. Do they even know where Portugal is? I got that answer from someone that you know very well. So, and these are big investors that are now looking to Portugal. Actually, we're one of the first to send me an email once we made it public at JP Morgan. So I do think that we have this obligation, once we do something interesting, to make sure that everybody around also you know, benefits from it. And the second point is also very personal. I would like, and I've said this too many times already, but I would really like my kids to be here, and if they want to go away, it should be, you know, an option, not you know, a necessity. I think that's also what I'm struggling with. So at this point, I think if we could leverage this and help everybody else, it's even much more exciting. And so, yeah.
Okay, so our experience is a little bit. Sorry. Thanks. So our experience is a little bit different, and I need to do a disclaimer. I only joined JennyBet in 2020, so my contribution to the success of the story, it's very small. But what I believe was very important in the progression and to contribute to the success of JennyBet's story are some points that I will mention that I think are important, people that want to do or to have the ability to do the same, that are important. So first, persistence. I believe that JennyBet has had some difficult years from 2007 to 2010, but with the support of its shareholders, it was possible to survive and to overtake the difficulties. The second point is time. It's important to understand that the market and the framework in this sector is more adequate to medium to long-term mindsets, and this was also understood by our shareholders. The third point is talent, and also have some team members known and reputed abroad. I think it was very important for JennyBet to be known outside, and as you may know, our clients, we export 99% of our revenue, so it was very important to have someone known outside. Flexibility, and this I think it's something that JennyBet has a lot, but I think that the Portuguese people also had, because in other companies that I have worked in other sectors, this was something that was also mentioned. For example, I work in HIFASEC, and what they usually say is that they were able to build a ship with 5 legs. So it's an example of our flexibility. In this specific case of GeniBet, I think it was also very important, the so-called first movers advantaged, because in fact, the biologics and ATMP therapies are still something in its infancy, and IBET/GeniBet were present in this sector since the late 80s. And last but not least, the relation between IBET and GeniBet and the synergies were also a success factor for the success of GeniBet, and I believe also of IBET. And okay.
And we'll ping down on the last point, because I think we've discussed in the morning the ability of translating science into value. And I think it's a point we can double down in the next round. But Maria, we've been discussing a little bit the definition of success, correct? How do we define this? And you are in a place where it's kind of the basic, correct? So as companies come to you, how do you judge success, or how do you see, I think these guys are going to be successful? Or even how do you define it, correct? So what is success for you? So it's success, okay, you create jobs, it's fine. It's government money, or is it something else?
Successful is a quite difficult term to define, but I prefer to record the Nuno's conception of being great at your own place. So, for example, this is the aim of the incubator in Salamanca. Salamanca is well known for her for its hospital, research center, the university, of course. And there are a lot of people, talent people there. So we need to retain talent to to take the success with these people in this city to feed the ecosystem, the health ecosystem, the business ecosystem. So for us, the success is to create an ecosystem where that can support the city in the next level in this part. So.
And then I'll carry on with you to something which I think is important for success, and we all discussed capital in different forms. You mentioned the shareholders of the company, and GeniBet also had an interesting mix of public-private backers to the shareholding. But how do you guys think about attracting capital to Salamanca, correct?
Yeah, we focus in attract capital, but high-level capital. Well, not high level, but specialized capital, because Salamanca is a city really focused in tourism and at the university. So if we have a great capital of people, we should have a great capital of people doing things that can apport to society. The companies has the focus on patient, obviously, but we need the focus is in the city with the people in the city.
Perfect. Good. And I'll carry on this. And I was well. I'm also shocked that I think if you look at the US, the average round for a biotech company, even now, where there is much less money in the market, is getting close to a little below $100 million. I think you guys raised a handful, or even a little bit less than that. Even GeniBet, by building an industrial unit, raised a little bit of money. Is this okay? I was going to say, is this good or bad, but I think good is not. So is this okay, or is this terrible? And what would have been different in your cases if you had enough smart capital to go to the next mile?
Well, to your point, we actually raised only 1.4 million. So we had to work with what we had at the time. We needed to bootstrap to leverage different MTAs with different companies as much as possible, partner as much as possible and try to kill it every day as much as possible, so that we could make the right, let's say, the right decisions moving forward. Because I mean, we were very, we had a very, very short runway. We could have done much, much better. I'm very proud with what we've done. I think that we could have done more, for sure. And I'm gonna. I don't think I've said this publicly. I think because people ask me, so are you happy? Is it like frustrating? Would you like to, take it further? I think that the only thing is, but I'm sure that Architects here, they will be able to do that for me, and I will enjoy the process. I would love to get this to the clinic. I would love to get this to the clinic. I think it would be great for Portugal to have a company reach the clinic. If we only raised that round that we were going to be raising when we got bought. But that's the only thing. Of course, if you have companies that are underfunded, I mean, there are two things that happen. One, you're not able to attract the best people. That's a problem. And also, I mean, with everything that comes with it, but the thing is, you're also, pointing companies to failure, because companies need to pivot. Sometimes things don't work, and you need to pivot. And if you're only raising enough money to take you from A to B, and if you're not even getting enough buffer to pivot at a certain point, people are going to be pushing and as much as possible, because they know that they cannot afford to pivot, and that leads to Ponzi schemes. And I've said this over and over. Then what happens is that you convince another investor to deploy capital into it. Hopefully, you're going to be taking this to phase one, knowing that it's going to be failing, but at least people are going to be able to get some money out of it. So I think that's kind of a rabbit hole that we all get into. So I would say that if at least we were a little bit more funded, we would have the capability to, to do more science, to reach to different goals, and also attract people that at the end of the day would be able to also stay here in Portugal. Because again, we've done this, biggest deal ever, and people are kind of clipping pitch book information, saying that it was, CellMabs was the largest transaction in Europe, whatever. Yes, but what were we able to retain here in Portugal? Just the money. So people just left because we were working almost virtually. We don't have, we had labs in New York at J&J, at J Labs, because we didn't have infrastructure. Nobody invested in infrastructure. And more than happy to talk to you about what you just challenged me about CFIDs and whatever. Because, you need to deploy capital in Portugal, but then you have no way of deploying it because you have no way of doing science here. And then we overcome using these different strategies of. So, we would have here hours to do.
So for me, or retain, it would be better overall if we're able to do the next inflection point, which I think is a critical point for all of us here in the audience, entrepreneurs, investors, and people that work in the ecosystem. But in you guys, I think private equity is quite different, correct? So the journey continues for Genibet, doesn't necessarily stop, or moves hands, doesn't stop but moves hands.
Yes, and for me, that's I'm an economist, and so for me, value is based on future cash flows. And in our case, I think that the price paid was a fair price. A fair price was a fair price based on our cash flows. At the time, we had a project for growing, to build new facilities, and I believe that this was incorporated in the price. But of course, the value could be higher, but then we need to create value and to have done some more things that at that time, I believe that our shareholders have thought that could be other company with more capabilities on the distribution and commercial side that could do that job easier. And it was the time where they decided to leave and yes, to exit.
And we've been talking about Portugal, but somehow, and I'm completely ignorant about the Salamanca ecosystem, I'm sorry, but I would say that there is a little bit of a parallel in terms of the stage of development that the ecosystem is. And Portugal, even compared to other hubs, as we heard this morning, Catalonia still being one of the most mature hubs of the Spanish ecosystem. So do you draw a lot of comparisons to what we've been seeing here today and in Salamanca and things that need to be done, or things that you should share with us that are working well and that we should emulate across the border?
I think that the Spanish ecosystem depends greatly in the different regions. Of course, it's not the same in Madrid or Catalonia that in Salamanca, for example, which is in the border, is closer than Portugal. I think it's not a case of comparison on what is better, what is worse. I think it should be a point of collaborating between regions that have the same characteristics. For example, Salamanca has great research centers, of course, and a hospital that has a lot of research as well. So it has a great potential, but it's a great potential. So there are not many companies that are established in Salamanca. So, well, we have very talented people, but research people. So we need to translate this research to companies. And it is quite difficult because it's a place where people is quite conservative in these terms. It's frightened about financial terms, about regulatory system, about that. So our role as an incubator is to help researchers in these terms, because financial getting funding is difficult and is tough for not literated people in this area. So not all the ecosystem in Spain is better than Portugal, of course not. I think that there are different regions with different characteristics. For example, in Salamanca, is I think more similar to Portugal than to Catalonia, for example. So maybe we need to focus in this aspect of collaboration between regions in the European Union, for example, or the Iberian people, which share the same characteristics to apply strategies that could help to business in this area. It's more or less in these terms.
And this, I think, is important note, because I think success also comes with scale and concentration of scale. So concentration we don't solve, because Salamanca is where Salamanca is and the Portuguese ecosystem is where it is. But I think scale is fundamental. And I would go, well, let's try it out, to you on this question of scale. And you mentioned something in the interaction, because BIOMEET was still fairly small when it was acquired by Reci Farm, but somehow it scaled through its founding institutions, from a question of knowledge and access to technology, from a question of credibility and access to international markets. So how critical it was, now I guess less, but at least it was, for BIOMEET, the very close nature of the relationship with translational academic units that eventually other CDMOs don't have. And I can think, well, Lonza is far away from university these days. Reci Farm itself was not as close. And so how critical was this to be in the forefront of new modalities and the manufacturing of those?
I think it was very, very important. Of course, more in the beginning. Today, we still collaborate with IBET, and it's very important. And I think was a critical success factor for BIOMEET and also for IBET, because our clients see the advantage of the relation between the two institutions. And so we have spoken about critical mass and scale, and in reality, in our specific case of Genibet, we were able to be sold, to be a success company that has increased its revenues in the last 5 years, more than double sales, and grow from 70 people in 2022 to 120 this year. And we are not very big, so we have also a problem of scale, but it was not that was a problem that could cause that we have no success. So I believe scale, it's important, but it's not the focal point. Perhaps that because we are in a sector that it's not a mature sector. And when we are in mature sectors, we need to have that scale. And that scale could contribute to be more productive, to have less costs in produce. And in this specific sector, I think it's not so important that, of course, we have the big Lonzas, but they are, and now we are in Recipharm and we are a little bit close to that mindset. But even though in our specific day-to-day, it's not, we don't feel that the scale is so important, because we can be very competitive, and we can, and our clients, that the majority are startups, we are more close to their mindset and could and the flexibility they need that the big ones.
It's quite interesting. It's more a question of edge from technology rather than efficacies of scale that come with it. Now, Nuno, I'm going to you with a slightly provocative question, and don't tell me you're a lawyer, that's how you did it. So as a scientist, how were you able to get a company to exit, and how did you even survive?
How I survived?
Yeah, because we heard this morning, it's not a fit.
It's, well, I don't know what you're talking about, because I wasn't here for the entire...
Perfect, so ignore me.
But I would say that at least one of the members of the panel knows exactly what was going on backstage. I think that team and surrounding yourself with the right co-founder, that's critical. And I mean, some of you also know Paula Vidal, so I need to acknowledge her, of course, because there are decisions that you need to make in the board, and I was the CEO, but also the chairman of the company, so I was in between things. And people don't know, because it's also not public, but this was not the first deal. I declined an initial one. There was already hundreds of. And it's very hard to say no when you have, when you think you're making the right call for the right causes. One, because you think that's the best thing for shareholders, but you also think that's the best thing for patients overall. And if you work in oncology like we do, you also need to think as a father, as a son, as a brother, and you need to be able to lay down every day, put your head on the pillow, and think, do I feel well with myself making these different calls? So I was not comfortable with the first deal that appeared. It was hard. I could only survive just because I had Paula backing me. So that is very important. So you need to choose your co-founders. So I also don't believe in doing something on your own. I think you actually need someone on your side with skin in the game. But I think you also need to have an understanding of where you want to go. and make sure that you know, as an entrepreneur or a founder, that that's not your baby anymore, and those should not be the reasons why you're making those different calls. But you need to make sure that whatever you do could have eventually repercussions not only at your level, but eventually at the level around those who are next to you. And I think we made the right call, especially for the Portuguese ecosystem. I think that we kind of gave away an arm to preserve the rest of the body. And I think that at this point, two things were very good. One, I think that patients are going to get this treatment much faster because I think BioNTech has this capability that we don't have. I think that we were also able to raise awareness to what we were doing or to what we are doing right now. And I think that we are getting attention from other investors that are now looking to Portugal. We are also convincing, and hopefully if everything goes well, we're going to have the capability to welcome them back, convincing Portuguese people all across the globe to come back to Portugal, because I think that we have tremendous talent that is abroad that should come to Portugal and help us raise this ecosystem. And of course, I think that we are now able, or in a different position, to set up this new company, making it what we actually wanted Cell Maps to be. Developing new products, something vertically integrated, that also has manufacturing capabilities, that is also able to scale. And I think that Portugal is, and if I may, David, just to, it's not off topic, but it's, let me know if you want me to stop. But I think that now we're in a very interesting position to leverage Portugal. When we announced the deal at JP Morgan in San Francisco, I do remember one of the managing partners at JP Morgan saying, with $1.6 million, how were you able to do that? Well, we're actually in Portugal, and we have access to talent. We don't pay, lousy salaries. We actually, my scientists were much, better paid than I was as a CEO, because they're the ones that actually matter, and we do need to preserve them and to respect them. But I think that we are in a very interesting position right now to, to attract these different companies to come to Portugal. There are different CEOs that are actually setting up new companies. We have the infrastructure to welcome them. We're still a very safe country. We have, very cost-effective facilities. I think that we should, as we did in the past with IT, I think that we should look into biotech, into life sciences, and make Portugal a hub. Size is not an issue if you think about Denmark. Of course, we don't have Novo Nordisk Foundation, I get it, but I think that we have enough money. Look at CFIDS, right? 2.5 billion euros in, or I think that there's a lot of money that can actually be deployed into these different ideas. I think that we have the capability of now coming together and make something a little bit different. And that's, what I want to do with Valvian. We want to make sure that we have full control of all of the, I would say, of all of the verticals we are going to be operating in. So from manufacturing to R&D, we're even going to be touching translation a bit with precision nutrition. And so I think that if this is, my opinion, I think one of the things that we can take from this. So I think, and I'll wrap this, I think when you were asking, were you able to survive? I think that we were not only able to survive, we were able to overcome ourselves. And I think we came out of this better. And so the deal was interesting, but what came out of the deal was far more exciting, I think.
It's good to hear. I think not a lot of the people on this room have gone through a proper due diligence for an acquisition. And I would look at you and just, what can you share about how crazy are those 3 months when the deal is happening and not happening, correct? And 1 minute before it's failing, and 2 hours later it's done. And people that are thinking, and I look at some people here that might be facing that situation soon. So how should you prepare to that moment in time where, well, someone comes and they're trying to find any single excuse to retract value from your company? So how do you prepare for this, and how do you go through that as well?
You need to prepare in advance.
But I think we are going to permanently swap this thing out. Perfect.
I think we need to prepare a lot of time in advance. So because you need, the information is not something that you do from one day to the next one. And so quite behind starting in open your capital, you need to start preparing that. You need to have all the accounting topics very well designed, and the processes, everything very fine-tuned. And another important point is that you need to have a strategy, if possible, a strategic planning. Although in some cases, when we speak about new technologies, it's very difficult to preview the cash flows, but you need to prepare that, to have a story to tell that supports your business plan. And you need to be prepared that you will have all the information you think it's sufficient, but but people came and ask for more and for more details, and it's a period of a 3-month period, very intensive.
And going to you, Maria, how do you guys prepare your companies, correct? So raising capital, selling, so you're talking about funding, but also exits, requires sometimes a preparation that entrepreneurs don't put enough time to, just because they are on the day-to-day of managing the companies and not necessarily on this. So what do you guys bring to the table? What do you think is critical to apport to these teams in order to support them in these processes?
Our work as a incubator is, of course, to prepare companies for this process. We think that it's necessary to the very beginning to start with the business plan, and in the business plan, the roadmap should be the exit and the plan of exit. We think that one of the key points in this aspect is the co-founders, the capital. And why? Because if the capital is not specialized in biotechnology, maybe they cannot understand the process, and mainly the short-term, the opposite, the long-term that biotechnology companies need to have revenues. So if you use specialized capital for that, it's easier to get a successful exit for the company. If you try to exit too short, like non-specialized capitals could ask you, your product will not mature, so you are failing your patients. In this case, in case of biotech, biohealth companies. So we are focused in searching for our companies specialized capital, specialized funding for these companies for this purpose, for understanding the whole process and the terms and the years, because a drug needs 10 years for half a regulation. So you cannot have a quick exit as your investor may need. So we try to focus in this part of the incubator and accelerator process.
Perfect, thank you. And I'm starting to look at all of you, because if you start to have questions, feel free to ask for a mic from our teams, and I'll have you jump in with new questions. I'll go back to a point that was raised. It was the question of repetition, correct? Repeat entrepreneurs. And I remember when I was starting my first company, there was a guy that told us we don't invest in first-time people just because we have no idea. We don't invest in successful people. That is an interesting one for you, because they tend to learn less than the people that failed. Anyhow, The repeat entrepreneurs is a key topic for reputation, and it goes both in industrials, but it also, if you open a coffee shop, it doesn't matter. Your experience counts dramatically. So I'll start with you, Nuno. So what's different now? You are going at it again. So what's different in you as you think about creating the company, and what's different in the perception that the other side of the table has on you, and now much easier or not, is it?
Yeah, I think that the lessons learned, because we failed a lot along the way, of course, and I'm very respectful of the path, and I mean, I go back to these different things that actually didn't work well. I think that along the way we learned, we kind of fine-tuned the process. It was a roller coaster. It wasn't a smooth ride. So it wasn't something that I can, sit here and say, look, it all went well from the beginning until the end. And so I have no idea what it is to go wrong. It wasn't the point. We had to pivot. We had to try to kill the project every day. We had corporate issues. We had, just all of these different board things that you might imagine. But we also had to deal with the silence, failing. How could we overcome these different things? How could we create redundancies? We had COVID. We were, of course, underfunded. So all of these different things, I think that along the way, we learned how to do things a little bit better. Of course, we ended up making better decisions than wrong decisions, I would say. Because, I mean, just looking at the outcome. Not sure if that's that accurate, but at least overall, I think the outcome is good. But now I think that the main risk, and if I may, I know that wasn't the question, at least in a way it was, I think, David, you correct me. But now I'm much more careful with reputation. That's critical. And it's very easy for you to think, well, I've done one. It's not hard. I can do, because you tend to forget the bad things, all of those endless nights that you don't sleep, because in the end you think now going back, because the brain is this very interesting thing that just keeps you focused on the good things, especially now that I'm surrounded with love and everybody's really nice to us, and we're very, very grateful, and that answers the second part of your question, which is, yes, everybody wants to dump money into Valvian, and everybody wants to do things with it. So it's never been easier to raise capital. But now I think that we're trying to be respectful with the money, and we need to ground ourselves on a daily basis, because circumstances are different, the variables are different, and even though we think we found a way to make things work, I mean, I'm thinking about the process itself. You cannot get carried away, because it will kill you if you think that you are now something just better. You're not. I'm still an entrepreneur trying to raise capital and trying to make sure that what I'm doing makes sense, and I'm always trying to make things work. But I think that I do think that you need to police yourself and look, you're not Midas, right? That you don't just touch gold and things happen. So I think that you need to understand that you're going to be making mistakes. The mistakes that you don't know you're going to be making, those are the worst ones. And also the decisions that you're making, it's not just because you made good decisions in the past that now everything that you say is correct. So, but you need to police yourself, because people tend to not argue against you because of what you've done, and that can be an issue. So surround yourself with people that contradict you and that ground you is very good. I'm building my team right now that way, so that I can be called out as much as possible.
Independent people.
Independent people.
There is a question here in the second row, if we can get a microphone for José.
Mine works. Thank you very much for sharing. And I really want to focus just on one word, exit. If and when and how. We were forced recently to ask ourselves the question, do we want to exit now? And we were not prepared for this question and sort of freaked out a bit. it always comes to mind this supposedly African proverb that if you want to go fast, you go alone, but if you want to go far, you go together. And we've been asking ourselves, do we want to continue alone just with money to get there fast wherever we're going, or do you want to go further with by being acquired by someone else? So I'd really like to get your feedback. For JennyBet, can you now do more because you've been acquired by a larger company? And to Nunu, can you now do better because you already have an exit? Are you free to do something better or not? So how do you feel about this?
In our case, and although I have said that JennyBet was able to surpass the problem of scale, even though I believe that JennyBet reached a point where it was important to be part of, to join a partner that have knowledge in the sector. And we feel today that Recipharm brought scale in terms of, for example, R&D and innovation, because at the same time they bought JennyBet in Portugal, they also bought 2 other companies in the States and in the biologics sector. And so, of course, it's much easier and profitable to do innovation if we have more scale, where we can do a repartition of the cost. So that was important. We were expecting in the commercial side, we expect to have an improvement for being part of Recipharm Group, and that we are feeling that our capabilities were very strong, because the reputation that JennyBet has, it's crucial to sell, and today it's very, very important. It's not, of course, it's important to be part of Recipharm Group because other clients that are not our usual clients probably think, they belong to this big group, so they can do. So this gives confidence for our clients also. And so in the commercial, on the innovation, and also for example, JennyBet in the beginning of 2023 had an FDA have a process of to a product from one of our clients. We had a FDA inspection, and it was important to belong to a network that have already done that before. That, for example, was very important. So, to sum up, I think our shareholders have done the right decision to sell the company in the point where they sold, because they, at that time, they knew that JennyBet will do a big investment to almost duplicate its capacity, and it would be important to have a bigger network to support that.
So if I'm able, if we're now able to do things faster, I think that was one of the main advantages of doing the exit, to be honest. I think it's not the outcome. I think the outcome was good. I mean, financially and for those involved. But I think that what came out of it allows us to now do different things. I wouldn't be thinking about having a vertically integrated structure if it wasn't for the deal. I think it opens a lot of different doors. It also shows people the team's capability. I think that's good, and so I don't think we would be able to do what we're doing right now if it wasn't for the deal. So the exits sometimes could be just about the value, can be just about what you're going to be getting, but you're also, at least from my opinion, and depending on the deals, I think that it might give you the leverage that you might want to take things to another level and eventually even doing your own different things if that's something that makes sense. But we wouldn't be able to make this. And what we're trying to do now with Valvian is not a startup. It's not just a biotech company. I think I often say this, but I don't think it's the best comparison, but it's just to give you an idea. I think our objective now is legacy. I think legacy is something that is very important for us. I think it only comes to mind Bial in Portugal. We would like to do something 3.0 like that, and having, and also being able to leverage. And I do know that Genibet is also fulfilling that gap, but there's much more to do at the CDMO level. I think that we have all of these different companies that want to move away from China because of all of the IP issues that we're now finding. I mean, we always knew, right? But we always kind of thought that it was something that we wouldn't have to deal with. But as you mentioned, Lonza is extremely expensive, and the queues are tremendous, and there's still room for us to grow in Portugal and meeting those different needs. I could only make a case for this because of the exit. So I don't know what the projects might be, Jose. I do know that you have all these different things in your mind. So it could be if that serves your purpose or can give you leverage, I think sometimes it's great.
Looking at the room to see if there are more questions, and looking at one of the people on the org, my beautiful clock is stopped at 46 minutes, 15 seconds, so I have no notion of time, so keep me appraised on that one. Any other questions on the room? If not by now, I hope you think. You have in front of you 2 of 4 people that have done it in Portugal, so I think you should take this chance. But I'll challenge you on the liquidity of the top talent market in Portugal. I know this was not part of the briefing, but if we look at the Boston ecosystem, even the Danish ecosystem in Europe, people move, correct? So you learn in one place, you apply that knowledge in a second place. If I look to Portugal, and I might be unfair, and if I am, please correct me, and I'm happy to be schooled, people tend to stay and mobility is lower, which creates a different talent issue, which is the few talent you have with experience, well, doesn't go anywhere. You might be doing a company with the same people or as much as the same as you can. So the people that learn from your case are still building value with you, correct? So we are not multiplying value. The team that sold Genibet, and it might be too soon in terms of you guys being able to leave the company, sorry Raquel, is not the purpose here, are also not replicating that. Well, if Nuno wants to build a CDMO, it's obvious that one of the people in Genibet should be in this project, correct? So how do you look at the liquidity of the labor markets at the top, correct? So on the people that accumulated experience, reputation, and capacity to deliver on the big challenges.
No. You are speaking about the top, but in reality, I believe that what has been happening in the last 3-4 years with the bottom positions, or not the senior level, will go up eventually. So, and in our specific case, what we have been, our churn rate is enormous. And we are having difficulties in retaining people, not only because the Portuguese market has changed a lot. There are a lot of new companies coming to Portugal to have their shared services here, but also because Portugal is much more known than 5 years ago, not only because the tourism, but this is an effect, a virtual circles effect, positive effect. And so what happens is that also we are facing competition regarding talent from companies outside Portugal. And in my opinion, this will not stop at the second level in the company. This could be go up. What our shareholders need to keep in mind, and I think it's their, it's our obligation to point to flag at this, but then they will need to do something, because Portugal will not be the low salaries country for too many years, I believe, based on this competition that we are.
Agora está pondo o microfone, temos que pedir desconto ao patrocinador.
I have already. Okay. So to sum up, I believe that things will change, and this will be good for talent that is working in this industry.
And I'll go to you first, Nuno, and then finish with Marie on the talent question and Salamanca as well.
Okay. So, okay, good. I don't know if it was a sign or not, but I was thinking about saying something, and as a stubborn entrepreneur, I'll say it anyways. Unpopular opinion. I don't think that we have that much of a talent, as we say in Portugal. We have potential. We don't have talent. So for example, if you set up a biotech, if you need to hire people for your biotech, you don't have them. So, for example, it's a little bit different when you get people, even Portuguese people, that have been through these different researches. I bet as a research center is a little bit different. I mean, I did part of my master's there, so I do get that they try to work as much as possible according to the best practices. So it's a bit different, but that's kind of an outlier in Portugal. But I mean, everybody else, it's still, I think that the speed of biotech is different. The best practices of biotech is different. And we need to first evangelize people for that. We need to make sure that people, when they're doing the masters, the PhDs, the postdoc, whatever, that they're working, understanding that there is a way for them to make a career in biotech in Portugal. Therefore, I think that, you know, their level of commitment can be different. Otherwise, they're just finishing what they're doing to get into pharma or whatever. So of course, we need to understand what we're building. So, I mean, we did that at CellMaps. We had to hire from MD Anderson, from Sloan Kettering, from JSK in the UK, because we needed lions instead of hiring, with all due respect, you know, 50 sheeps. We needed to make sure that we were effective and we paid the corresponding salary. And if we raise enough money in Portugal for biotech, we need to make sure that we put in our P&L the salaries that good scientists should earn in Portugal. And because we also need to attract international scientists to help our scientists, not only at a high level. I mean, we pay 200, 400,000 a year for a good CSO to come to a Portuguese company, and I mean, we cannot be paying 2,000 euros a month to a scientist. That doesn't make sense. And so if we're able to understand that these are very well paid and need to be very well paid scientists, If we create ecosystem, if the purpose is there, if the right drive is there, that was what we were talking about. If we have all of these moving parts coming together, I think that there's a good chance we might even be able to attract back the talent that is out there. I didn't have any issues attracting people from the US or even from the UK to come to Portugal. They were really, really into coming to Portugal. I mean, if the project is okay and if you pay them well. So I think that we could even leverage Portugal, to be honest. We're just thinking about, and rightfully so, thinking about the talent that we have, and you're absolutely right when you think about this different mobility. I do think that that's an issue. But we have the capability of attracting new talent from abroad, Portuguese that are there or even international ones that can come to help train these new biotech people. By the way, and we're not going to be having any sort of financial gain out of this, but at Valvian we're going to be creating a kind of, and that's something that our shareholders already know. We're going to be creating, I wouldn't say an accelerator, but a center of excellence, agnostic of institutes that they come from, so that, in 12-month programs that can enable different scientists that are working on different technologies to come into the company, learn from us in a way, work with us. Hopefully we're going to be also able to help them take their technologies into, or onto a phase where it can be eventually translatable, introducing them to different VCs. So we have, nothing to gain from that. But if you think, we also gain something from that. So if you think about this, and really quickly, we have all of this different money to invest. You have these different technologies, but you don't have teams, and you don't have infrastructure, but you have all of these different money, right? So the thing is, professors are not going to be leaving the academia because they're the ones bringing the money and with grants and everything else to the academia. So the next best thing, if I may, are the students that are working with them, PhD students and so on, but they still need to be taught and trained on how to set up a company. That's something that we would like to help them be able to achieve. But think about it, if at the end of the day, if they go back, and even if they don't do anything, we've generated an additional individual that with the capabilities that we need to our company. So I think that's kind of how I see this and how we would like to approach it. But I see with money and the right vision, because money sometimes is not enough for you to attract people back, I think we have the right conditions to be an amazing European hub for biotech.
I would agree. I'm just more jitter than you. It's the question of age. With Maria, so what are you guys doing to train the scientists, correct? To get them to the right vision and to the right mindset, I would say, in order to explore their research. And I'm looking to see if there are other questions around. There is one there. So for after, can we put a mic there somewhere, fourth row, in the corner?
Just to say that in our specialized service in the incubator, is training people not for science but for business. That's the problem. You have talent people, but you only have potential business people. So you need to teach people how to compete in a business environment. So the point is not to attract 2 or 3 level research people. Is try to create an ecosystem just to retain the talent. Because if you have very talented people for US, UK for 12 months, you have nothing. You really don't have nothing. You need an ecosystem that helps to retain talent and to prepare people for business. So, for example, we'll talk about repeat entrepreneurs. Repeat entrepreneurs are essential for mentoring these people. So, mentorizing programs one-to-one or just for few companies sharing the same characteristics are essential just to learn about fails, to learn about success, but helping to create this ecosystem, this networking that is necessary for the companies. We cannot only survive on research. We need to create business.
Thank you. And I think we go now to our last question from the audience.
Okay. Thanks very much for the interesting panel, and thank you for your wishes personally for TalkTex. My question, even going against ourselves, is: do you believe that in Portugal, in being that we have a young ecosystem, do you think that we should be focused on getting deals earlier, exits earlier, in a preclinical stage, in our case, and then build upon that and start to make bigger companies with clinical trials and move? Because considering the successes here that we have, that David has mentioned so far, most of them have been done in preclinical stage. Maybe has an ecosystem in Portugal, maybe we should focus on building that first, doing all those preclinical deals to get some notoriety, and then try to go after to the more advanced stages that have a bigger return. Do you think that's a good strategy overall for the ecosystem, or we should go aim as big as we can?
So the thing is, for you to get to clinical, and let's just work on that. Just on to take it to clinical, you need to raise capital with international investors. Eventually, they might ask you to take your company and headquarter it in the US. And then when you do the deal, it was not a Portuguese biotech company that did it. It was an international company backed by these big VCs. Of course, Portuguese founders are then going to be but it wasn't a Portuguese deal. We decided not to raise now this first round of funding in the US. And it was easier to do that there, as some of you know. But the thing is, we needed to make sure that the company was in Portugal, based in Portugal, backed by VCs, by Portuguese VCs. Some of them we're going to have to mentor as much as possible. We need to try to evangelize them, to teach them how to look under the hood, understand how they can be misled eventually, right? How to interpret, for example, these different mice models, ask the right questions, right? So, I mean, and so all of this is something that requires a great amount of work. But I think that overall, if you're thinking about the ecosystem, I would say if we could do a lot of these different preclinical deals, you can make next bigger rounds. So, I mean, both of us, we raised 1-ish million, right? I'm now raising a pre-series A, and I'm trying to do it below 15, and it's hard because it's already oversubscribed, and I don't need that much amount of money, right? It's completely ridiculous, the difference. What I'm trying to say is, if you do this repeatedly in preclinical, I think everybody's going to be interested enough in deploying capital into it because they see the return. And if you're able to raise a very good pre-seed or seed or Series A, I think that you can raise it in a way that enables you to get to the clinic still as a Portuguese company next time. And because people are going to be, much more into what you're doing. But when should we stop, and when should we, decide to move one way or the other? I think it depends on companies, but I see it this way. I think it's a matter of sacrifice in the beginning, or just go for it, and then make sure that you're able to, at least when you're negotiating, if you have the right investors that enable you to make that visible, and to still have something here in Portugal and still get that visibility, you can try to get a compromise. But it's easier to do several preclinicals and then do the next initial rounds much more, muscular, let's say. Yeah.
looking if someone wants to pitch in. No? No? It's okay? So I'll finish with two dogmas on the panel. Companies are not sold, they are acquired. So you'd never control this moment in time. So it's impossible for you to plan to sell, correct? If the second one is manage your company as if you're going to own it forever, otherwise you will. And I think it's very important, correct? So it's not that you can slice the cake in different ways because you are a Portuguese entrepreneur. The cake is the same, correct? If it's chocolate cake, it's chocolate cake. We are in biotech. Biotech is in the business of generating data to promote exits. And sometimes mice data is enough to get a deal, if the deal is right enough and the partners are right enough. Sometimes it's commercial cases. And in the last 3 years, we have had exits with CellMabs on preclinical and Pfizer acquiring Seagen for 42 billion as well. The amount of data they were looking for and the impact on the right moment is different. So I think we need to have our business plans focused. We are in an international market. We do like others do. And sometimes we need to do magic with whatever money we can find here in order to get there. So I think that's the challenge that we all face. Thank you so much for the panel. It was really a privilege to have you all here. It was a pleasure to be here with you as well. And now, Philippa, what do we do?
Well, thank you very much. I think the discussion was so... Our speakers were having such a powerful discussion that the system wasn't able to handle it. Thank you very much for your interventions. We'll now have a coffee break and networking break. We'll be back in 30 minutes. Thank you.